At 1-0 down at half-time against St Mirren at the weekend, we had some fans, and I do stress the word some fans, absolutely losing their minds over some players and demanding that Ange Postecoglou gets the hook out for a whole host of them before the second half resumed. The list included Jota, who went on to score the equaliser, and a guy who then won the free kick that led to the second goal. It included Aaron Moy, a guy who finished the game with 3 assists, and it also included Kyogo, the top goal scorer in the country, with 24 goals for the season so far. Remember too that this is a Celtic side who have now lost just once in their last 57 league games and who are now on a 25-game unbeaten run domestically. As supporters, we'll always have different opinions, and that's part of the fun, and we would always encourage that. Keeps things interesting. Although I would stress that it should always be done respectfully, and some of the noise you see online at half-time, particularly on Twitter, and I know Twitter is not the place for all things balanced, but some really poor comments, to say the least. However, the question very generally is this. Given the success that he's brought to the club in the short time he's been here and the manner in which he's done so, should we all be showing just a bit more trust and a bit more patience in the decisions that Ange Postecoglou is making? Whether that's who he picks in his starting lineup, what style of football he chooses to play, who he signs during a transfer window, and even what players he decides to let go during those same transfer windows. James, your initial response to that question?
Yeah, I mean, I think the blunt answer is yes. The evidence is all there as to what Ange has achieved for Celtic. Whilst taking your point, and I agree with it, football is always going to be about opinions, and sometimes strong opinions, and that, like you say, should always be encouraged. And Twitter, isn't the real world, but I've seen some mad takes in the pub. I've seen some mad takes in the terraces. So it's nothing particularly new. But yeah, there's such a wealth of evidence there to say that, Ange knows what he's doing. He knows how to land the plane, take off and land the plane. And he's not the type of manager we've seen in the past that is stubborn. He can see if something's not right, he'll change it. If someone's not on it, and he gives them as much time as they need to get back on it, i.e. Jota. But if they don't get back on it, he'll change it. He'll do what's required to get the result. So I just don't think it's... Maybe there's a couple of things at play. It's St Mirren. It's where we lost our game this season, the one and only, the 57 that we've lost. So there's maybe a wee bit of nerves creep in there. And even creeping into the first 5-10 minutes of the second, there was a ball rolled under Jota's foot and you went, oh, maybe it's not going to happen. But even then, if it wasn't going to happen for Jota that day, I trusted the manager to make that change if and when it was required. It certainly wasn't required at half-time. The Maeda change was more logical because you could see he just wasn't quite getting there. There wasn't as much defending required against 10 men as there would have been, for example, pinning Tavernier in. So make that change, bring Abada on, be a bit more explosive, stretch the defence as was required. So yeah, the Aberdeen game this year, Callum McGregor scored the winner. It was at 88 minutes, something like that. I was perfectly relaxed, and I've never been like that as a Celtic fan. So with 45 minutes to go, I was like, just relax, there's nothing wrong here.
Yeah. I was on the old Twitter at half-time, Paddy, for our account at Celtic Exchange, and I was basically saying, surely we need to offer a bit more support to Jota. And as I say, I thought some of the comments were really poor, and he's a guy who I think had earned the right to maybe have a couple of poor performances, but also will remember or be mindful of the fact that the guy's an absolute match winner. So I went out, I made all that noise at half-time, and then as James says, 2 minutes into the second half, it bobbles over his foot and goes out for a throw, and I thought, I might need to delete that tweet. But I would never do that. I stand by it. And then lo and behold, as I say, I think it was 56 minutes, he shows the character. Not a typical Jota type goal. He's had to fight for it and had to kind of show a bit of something while he was on the deck there. You seen the elation from Jota and his teammates when he scored it. He was, roaring his teammates on. I think he even gave the linesman a pat in the back as he ran by him, if you've seen that. And he then goes on to win the free kick. He nutmegs a guy and gets body checked to win the free kick, which Moy then takes and leads to Alistair Johnson's goal. And at that point, there's no turning back. And I think Ange Postecoglou, I don't know if Ange's got Twitter, if he's got a burner account, but,
Siamese boy.
Had he gone on to Twitter at half-time, hypothetically, of course, and said, blah, 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 oh, all right, I better take Jota off. Such was the noise for get him the hook and, he needs to go and all that stuff. He's been murdered and much more animated comments than that. But Ange is obviously very, very experienced in the world game. He knows more than anybody, all of us included. You've got to trust the experience this guy's got, World Cups, titles, all across the globe. And he knows what Jota can offer. He's made the smart move with Maeda, because I agree, James, I think Maeda's there for as much of his defensive work as anything else. He keeps the defences pinned in. He very much starts the whole defending from the front type ethos of Celtic. But when St Mirren go down to 10 men, you don't need that. So yeah, Ange could have gone with popular opinion and taken Jota off, but he thinks, hold on a minute, I need a guy that can potentially unlock a defence. And I would argue that maybe Jota, Hatate, Haksabanovic, all these creatives, these are the guys you want on. And as is often the case, Paddy, he was proven right.
It's a perfect sub. It's a perfect sub from him. He's bringing Maeda off, and like you say, he's going to be running into bodies. That's all it's going to be. He's maybe not got that level of creativity the way that Jota does, or the way that Liel Abada does as well. And basically putting Jota into his more natural position out in the left, and allowing Abada to come into his natural position on the right. It suited us. We bombarded them, and it just shows you what we've got at our disposal. Could either of them went off? Yeah, absolutely. I don't think Jota had a great game in the first half. I think as fans, it's very, very difficult for when we see our team and we see the ones that we know can play at a better level. It frustrates the life out of us when we see them not really showing up. Me personally, I actually think the St Mirren fans got to Jota on Sunday.
So when he scored, he was giving them a bit.
Aye. And I don't think he's someone that likes to be accused of diving, and there was a lot of shouts for that from him, and he was right on the right wing, right on their main stand for a good majority of the game. And I personally think that has played with his head for that duration of that first half. And like you say, uncharacteristic moments of the ball slipping under his foot. But if you have a manager that just trusts everything about you and knows what you're capable of and sees the frustration, because I don't think it was down to a poor game. I generally think there was just genuine frustration building up, and you just trust that your player's just going to get it right. And it takes your captain speaking to him as well. It takes the rest of the team talking to him and helping him through it. And that's why you see the reaction to the goal he gets. And what a great goal. Absolutely brilliant. No right to get it as well. But he put his body on the line to make sure that he was getting it in the back of the net. I personally think that we're allowed these moments where we can vent. I really do. I think that as fans, there's plenty out there that understand the game, know the game, and I know what you're talking about. We give a manager trust, but there would be zero interest in watching football if you just sat back and let everything go.
Of course. We
need that debate. We need those moments of anger. We need those moments of frustration. It's what makes it even more exciting. It's not great for the heart rate. I was standing next to one of the boys at the final last week, and Apple Watch was giving him a health warning, saying that your heart rate's too high, you've not been walking, what's going on? That's what it's all about, though. It's getting built into these moments, and like James says, it's pub chat, it's Twitter chat, it's people just putting everything out there. They might not be thinking at the time as they're writing it. You can tell the ones that are thinking about what they're saying and the ones that aren't thinking about what they're saying. That's my thing about it.
Do you know, I think that's a perfect way to put it, because football's a game of emotion, of course, as particularly when it comes to Celtic, and how emotionally invested we all are. So I can understand, and you can also forgive anyone you maybe just kind of a bit over the top when it comes to half time, particularly just given what's at stake overall. There's such a push for the treble. Yep, as James says, there's that anxiety over the previous St Mirren result and everything that goes with it. So of course that's part of football, and as I say, you would never discourage that. I just think, just going back to Jota specifically, I think he's such a strong character. He speaks so intelligently. I mentioned to James in the post-match that he's the kind of guy that I think he's into like art and jazz and literature and that kind of thing. You just get that vibe from him.
Portuguese Pat Nevin.
The Portuguese Pat Nevin.
That's outrageous.
Trademark that.
But he's such a strong character. You heard in his post-match interview, what was an interesting term, James? He says, we don't get nervous, but we get
anxiety.
Healthy anxiety. I thought it was a brilliant way to put it. He says, there's obviously a pressure playing with Celtic and a pressure in each individual game, but it's a healthy anxiety the way the manager, and I think you can only express yourself and play in the way that Jota and others like him do if you've got the absolute trust of the manager. And what would it have said for Ange had he whipped off Jota half time? That tells you he doesn't trust him had he made that call. But he's basically said, somebody was saying, Ange must have read the riot act at half time and must have tore strips off them. I don't think so at all. That's not how Ange works, and I think he'll have spoken to Jota, whether it was one-on-one or in front of the group, and said, listen, I know what you can offer. Press the reset button, forget the last 45 and go and do something to go and help us win this game. And that's exactly what he done.
Say you do hook him there at half time on Saturday, and that wasn't your day, son. Well, takes a dent in his confidence, and he takes it into tomorrow night, Wednesday night, and he has a bad game then, we really need him for Saturday for the Cup, and then you're asking him to come from a negative position and overperform. What's the better way to do that? To keep him high, keep him on that pitch, get his goal, get his assists, win the free kicks, play well tomorrow night, and blaze a trail on Saturday. Ange knows what he's doing.
I seen one in the comments actually to what you'd posted, and it baffled me a little bit, because I think that there was a little dip of form just before the break, and I think since he's come back, and it's not been straight away, but since we've come back for the World Cup, his performances have just been gradually getting better and better and better. Quieter in the final, could have been a bit better in the final, but just the way the game played, it wasn't really on his wing as much. But a few people were saying he's not kicked a ball in weeks, and I'm a bit like, did you watch the Aberdeen game? He's one of our best players. If Atati wasn't man of the match, for me it would have been Jota. I just think he's an incredible player, and they're the type of guys you just massage their ego the full way, because he is an intelligent footballer and he will only get better.
You've also got to look at the fact that he's, I think, very generally played out of position at the moment. Ange is a huge fan of Maeda, and more often than not he plays Maeda, but that means that Jota has to go to the right, which isn't his strength. Jota's at his absolute best coming in off the left hand side, so you've also got to forgive the fact that he's to an extent playing out of position, so there's different things at play there. Excuse me. Looking more generally, so stepping back from St Mirren and the Jota situation, as I say, we'll not even go into it in detail with Moy. Get Moy off, he's done, he's knackered. A hat trick.
I apologise for that, sorry.
We'll get to you and Aaron Moy just shortly. But I'd stress again in general that having an opinion, as we say, Paddy, it's all part of it. It's all part of the emotion of football, and not something we'd ever discourage. The bigger question, James, is at times just the lack of respect that's shown by some, and as I say, maybe emotion plays its part, so fair enough. But is that just part of modern day football? Is this just the way things are just now, particularly with the prevalence of social media?
Yeah, and there's a wee bit of a large proportion of Celtic support have only seen success, and one severe season of no success.
Young guys like Paddy. All he knows is winning.
That's rude.
It's only jealousy.
This is the same chat you get down the pub sometimes. Like, you weren't there in the 90s. I'm like, I was.
Okay, youngster. But there's a bit of that where we then demand more success, which is obviously always the way Celtic has been, but there's a wee bit of entitlement to success, not from you, Paddy, I must be very clear on.
Entitled Paddy.
So when anything goes slightly wrong, it's there's a rush to panic, and panic isn't a word I associate with Ange Postecoglou.
It's certainly not. He's calmness personified. Paddy, the kind of scrutiny and the level of criticism, does it just come with the territory at a club like Celtic? Is that just par for the course?
Absolutely. I remember speaking to some Ajax fans when we was over for the game 10 years ago, and I was talking to them just basically about their form, and like they're the main team for a long time. They have been the main team for a long time over in the Netherlands, and I think that PSV and Feyenoord come knocking every so often, but it's not an awful lot. And I remember we were watching, basically there was highlights of a game on, and they were winning 2-0, but their fans were booing. And I was just explaining this to me, and they're like, "Oh, that's a bad result." And what do you mean? You're winning 2-0? That's a bad result. And I generally think there's similarities from what we expect. It's all right. We've went through the games where it's been 1-0, 2-0, especially under Rodgers, where we've got the goal. That's it. Just kind of play, keep the ball, and it got a bit bland.
No, it didn't. Yeah, it didn't have.
Whereas this is incredible football we're watching. And actually, I'm not meaning to sound arrogant here at all. Like, when we are coming away with results like 4-1, 5-1 against teams, I'm not like taken aback by that. I'm kind of like that's expected. And I don't think that's a bad place to be at. I think that's credit to this team and credit to the manager.
Yeah, to a huge extent. You could suggest that Ange and his players are a victim of their own success. They've set such high standards. Their stats doing the rounds, I don't have the exact detail just now, but overall, during his time as a manager, Celtic have very rarely been behind in games.
In minutes.
Yeah, in overall minutes. So we're behind for best part of 45 minutes on Sunday, which was such a rarity. So I suppose during that time, as supporters, whether in stadium or watching, you'd be going, this isn't the norm. I don't like this. We're usually 2-3 up by half time and different things. So as you say, Paddy, it's just changing expectations, changing standards. And do you know what? I'm sure Ange Postecoglou wouldn't have it any other way. He's happy with his lofty, levels of ambition and levels of standards. What we do have in Ange Postecoglou is a manager who's universally adored by the fans. He's won titles across the world, as I've mentioned. He's managed at a World Cup. He's now won 3 out of the 4 trophies that he's competed in so far in Scotland, and hopefully another couple to come this season. Does a track record like that, James, make you immune to criticism, or more specifically, should it?
No, what's really interesting, you're certainly not immune from criticism, is, Paddy's referenced Brendan Rodgers there, and he came in, blazed a trail, and we were so delighted to have such a high standard professional manager in the ground. But it really dropped, and he was, Rodgers was on the dip, on the way out. He could have stayed, got us over the line and all that stuff. But, in the summer it might have been a good time for change anyway. Not getting into how he left in the middle of the night and all that stuff. Strachan was another one. By the end of Strachan's football was poor. O'Neill, another one. Ange doesn't seem to have that. He seems to, he gets that it's an entertainment business. So we are, head and shoulders above where we were this time last year, and we were great last year. Ange wants to put that forward every single season, that here's where you were last year, individually as players and collectively as a team, and say, how do you get your markers up to the next level collectively and, individually. So, and then obviously Europe's going to be the big question for us, come next season. So with Ange's attitude, Ange's style, Ange's ability, I just don't see it getting stale, because he's always, what's next? When it does get to the point where it's getting stale, it's when Ange says, I've run out of challenges here. It's time for me to go and do something new. And that's when we should all be worried.
Yeah, and I think there's plenty to keep him challenged and focused at this moment in time. I put a tweet out towards the end of last week. It sounds like that's all I do, Paddy, just sit on Twitter, just pigging things around. Yeah, I've got a job too, but less about that. And I put a tweet out because I'm going to be putting an article together this week at some point about Ange Postecoglou and just some of the amazing quotes that he's come out with since day one, from the moment he arrived in the building through the various successes and the ups and downs across his season and a half so far. There's been some brilliant responses, and hopefully I'll do it justice, but some of the responses have been amazing, just some of the really good stuff that's come back. And you're reminded of some of the things that he said and just how much he absolutely gets Celtic and what it means. To your point, James, about entertaining, it is not just about winning. In fact, the whole story that he would not be happy if we won 4-0 and didn't play and perform well, for example. Let's hear one clip just now, though, which is pretty relevant to this conversation we're having.
It's been my job for 26 years, When a pilot lands a plane, he knows what he's doing. You're not making that up as you go along. So I'd like to think that after 26 years, I think I know what I'm doing.
Paddy, I should probably just have fired that out at half-time on Sunday, because it kind of sums up where we are with Ange.
It does. I think we, as fans, realise what we've got in this manager. I might add, it's still very, very early days, in my opinion. I think that we're still learning more and more about him, and more about, I've looked at a lot this year, especially the way we've kind of tackled different games, the different tactics we deploy. It's not always just the standard keep a ball on the deck, try and play in behind or try and play through the middle. Some of the variations, like different games we've come up against, even just coming down to the state of the parks, what we've played on, how he changes it up, and just what he puts his team through all the time. We see a lot of comments of, what they're going to do, it's going to be 100 miles an hour, come face to face with them, that's when they put them under pressure. We've had that. Good teams in Europe have picked us off, absolutely. Better quality, better calibre of player. You hold your hands up. But the teams that are meant to come and beat us, they've came in our faces. They've came straight to our ground and tried to get up against us, and we've answered every question that's been thrown at us. And it's just the variation of how he deploys his tactics is incredible to see. And we forget that he will always adapt. And with the people he's got around him, he will continue to adapt with them as well. One of the things that stood out for me the other day was him talking about obviously planning for this window coming up. And he was talking already, he says, getting players in early seems to be working for us, so I'm not going to change that. We already know who we want to move up to, what we want to move up to for next season. So yeah, I'm looking to that next step. I'm looking to that already. For me, that's incredible to hear as a supporter, considering the years we've had of near beat-on centre-half, usual chat in the qualifiers. But also see as a player in that team, you're constantly looking over your shoulder. You're constantly saying, well, I need to up my game here because I want to be a part of this. And the ones that don't want to be a part of it, well, that's up to them.
Yeah. Just when you were talking there, Paddy, I was reminded, one of the suggestions we heard several times last season was when we were coming up into a physical game, whether it be, Hearts at Tynecastle, which we've obviously got this week, for example, the real clamour and the real shouts of, get Kyogo on the bench, go for Giakoumakis, we'll just go toe-to-toe with these big cluggers at centre-half and we'll go for the physical battle. And Ange's like, do you know what? Let's not. Let's go and make it difficult for those guys. And rather than lower ourselves, if that's the right word, to their level and play to their strengths, I'm going to go with this nippy Japanese striker who just bangs in goals for fun and causes them nightmares. Right. And lo and behold, as is often the case, time after time, he's proven right. Just for a bit of fun here, as much as anything else, I'm going to highlight 5 key times where we've doubted or questioned Ange.
I'm all 5 of these.
You're 6 of them. I'm definitely a few of them. Paddy, you can let us know where you are. So this is outside individual match situations, so maybe more general circumstances where we've doubted Ange Postecoglou. Number 1 is his insistence on his goalkeeper playing out from the back. We've seen it since his very, very first game at Celtic, which was a friendly against Sheffield Wednesday, if you remember, way back when, in July 2021. And we're going to continue doing that as long as Ange is the Celtic manager. Number 2, the eyebrows that were raised when he gave Tony Ralston an extended contract. Number 3, sticking with Greg Taylor and transforming him into the player that he now is. Number 4, signing then 31-year-old Aaron Moy. And number 5, allowing fans' favourites Josip Juranovic and Georgios Giakoumakis to leave / effectively kicking them out the door. James, you can pick your favourite example from the list, and maybe the Aaron Moy one is a good place to start for you.
You can pick my favourite one for the list.
But when it comes to identifying footballers, we've got to accept that, in Ange's own words, and to that clip we heard just a moment ago, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, I was very much in the Taylor won't make it camp, particularly around Alkmaar when he picked up that shoulder injury. I couldn't see it, and he's proven me so wrong. Him and Ange have both proven me so wrong, and delighted for it. For when I'm talking about any Celtic football player, bear in mind my baseline is that I want them to do well. They do well, we do well. That's it. And there's never anything personal in it. Moy, I'm right and I'm wrong.
You're wrong and you're wrong.
Wrong and I'm wrong. I don't think he's the future, is what I mean. I think we need...
Live for the moment, James, live in the now.
I'm always looking at our players with a Champions League lens, and I think Taylor's ticked that box. I think Moy will be able to do a job for us in Europe, but it'll be more from the bench than from starting. I still think we need something more in there. So I kind of stick by that, but you cannot deny how good he's been since the World Cup. You know, coming back and the confidence he came back with, he's been outstanding and delighted to see it. But I just think, you know, longer term, if Europe's the benchmark, then it might be a challenge. But the rest is all absolutely spot on. And just, you know, set out his stall, stuck to his guns is the really important thing. You know, it's like, see, there was a lot of noise. Even Joe Hart there, you know, Leipzig in the Champions League there, and it was like, oh, well, you know, we need to stop this playing. Like, we were at a talk with Ange last season, and a guy was in his late 60s, early 70s. He said, big man, you've got to stop doing that. You're going to give me a heart attack. He said, if something does go wrong, and he said it will go wrong, come to me, not the player. I'm putting them in that position. I'm making them take the risk. It's on me. So he sticks to his guns and he gets his results.
Yeah, absolutely. Paddy, various examples of, as I've said there, you know, 5 different general examples. Where are you at with those ones in particular?
I think obviously in the goalkeeper front, for me, we've got a goalkeeper that's not entirely comfortable at using the ball at his feet. Actually doing okay at it. Mm-hmm. I think he's at a good level at it with our league, and you know, bigger games, bigger occasions. That's when, you know, you want that to come into fruition, and it's not happened. Does it work in the league? Absolutely. We're a good enough team. We're a quick enough team for it to work. But I think once, and if we were able to sign a goalkeeper that's a lot more confident at that, then for me, that's going to be even more beneficial to us. The problem is, I don't think the keepers are available to Celtic. I really don't. I think money. I think for that kind of keeper, I would be hopeful that the tactics that are getting put into the first team are getting put into all the youth teams at the moment. Mm-hmm. And this is what our young goalkeepers are working on at the moment. I think it's so crucial. Gone are the days of goalkeepers just there to kick the ball up the park. They are well gone in this game. Yeah. It's too quick for that now, and you need to be able to play football as well.
I think the next big evolution of this squad under Ange will be nailing down that goalie position. I think you're right in terms of, you know, the youth players continuing to do what the first team does, and we know for a fact that's what the B team do under Darren O'Day and Stephen McManus. But I also think that Ange will most likely, in an Ange style, find us a goalie from probably a country we've never heard of, let alone the player we've never heard of, who'll be able to do that job. I think absolutely, you know, we couldn't touch, you know, the guys that do it. The guys that do it best are guys like, you know, Neuer and the Liverpool Man City goalies,
Ederson,
whose names evaded me, but Paddy saved me. These guys are, you know, some of the most expensive exports in football, so we can't go and pick the ready-made example, but you could pick out a good young talented goalkeeper who might be able to do that job, and that would just help us kick onto these new levels. In the interest of balance in general, though, there will be some who think, maybe rightly so, that Ange's got a few things wrong during his time, and I think, geez, he's only human. It's just nature that he's going to get a few things wrong. What about some of his signings, James, that maybe haven't quite worked out? The big examples might be guys like Ideguchi, Jens, Abildgaard. You know, they would certainly fall into that category. Did he get those wrong?
I think Jens and Abildgaard, you can take it as very well managed transfer policy, in that you'd got a really good close look at them before any permanent commitment to finance was made. And did they come up to the mark? Probably not. Abildgaard definitely not, because we didn't see enough of him. But the reason you're not seeing enough of him is he's not doing it in training. I mean, we all know that. Jens, we saw some of. There was something there, but there was some clangers there as well. And if Ange, like us, is holding the Champions League as a benchmark, that's not going to cut it. Cut the contract, off you go. Ideguchi, he's one of those, said to the boys last night, maybe we'll never know kind of thing. When he came over from Japan, he was meant to be the talent, and whether he didn't settle, obviously got that injury. And he got that injury at a time when our midfield was really starting to solidify itself. Obviously, Cal McGregor went out that very same game with the broken jaw. But by the time Ideguchi was fit, which was a long time, it was a horrendous challenge, by the way, and a bad injury, and never really get back from that. So, but I would umbrella all of that with Alex Ferguson saying, if I get 1 and 2 right, I was delighted. So where is Ange in 1 and 2? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he must be 90-ish% strike rate, Paddy, in terms of successful players. I mean, is there anything else? I suppose it's clear my opinions on Ange, and I'm absolutely not saying he can do no wrong, but 99% of what he does is right, in my opinion. But is there anything else that stands out? Anything that I might have missed? Any notable calls or decisions he's made, Paddy, that maybe he didn't quite, you know, make the right decision?
No, I'm struggling. I really am, Tino. Sorry.
No need to apologise.
I would give you one tiny wee thing.
Yeah, go for it.
Last week at the Cup final, talking to Alan McCoist about lifts up the road and all that stuff, and he's making like, I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of saying I even know what you said. That's how tight I would be on that.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? I know.
I'm with you on that though. Aye.
Do you know what I mean?
Aye. I know what you mean.
Don't give him the credibility of relevance.
Not to sound bitter, but I know what you mean.
Nah, just you're not even on my radar.
The bitter men across the way. So his only mistake is having a bit of a laugh with Alan McCoist. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Yeah, how dare he? Paddy, good debate, lots to chat through there, but your final thoughts on the matter?
I just think we just keep going as our manager wants us to, and I think it's all right to be caught up in the moment, and sometimes, especially when we lose the lead. I generally think next season's massive for us in terms of Europe, and I think that our manager knows that. I don't think all the chat about different clubs looking at him mid-season and just the way he's batted that away. Yeah. It makes me think he's just thinking about next year. He knows how important it is to the fans just to implement some sort of run, whether that be Champions League, whether it be finishing third to go into the Europa League, just to give us something, get some results in Europe, give us that good feeling at Celtic Park again. I think is definitely required, and I think he knows that. He knows how important it is, because he's seen how incredible a place it is on a European night, as well as in certain league games as well. So I just think, it would be a big success for him.
Yeah, a good run in Europe's the one thing that's been missing so far. James, your final thoughts on this one?
Yeah, just enjoy it while it's here. I hope it's here for another few years yet, but enjoy Ange while he's here, because Miff is not an easy man to please. Miff comes from a...
Just ask Mrs. Miff. She's a nightmare.
I'm not getting into that. So and he says this is the best manager he's ever supported, you know. And if you look at that, that includes Martin O'Neill and all sorts. Not getting that debate. I think it's hard to beat O'Neill because of where he took us from and to, but Ange to a degree as well. But you know, if you've managed to put Miff in a position like that, this is really, really special. And you know, watching Celtic at the moment is just it's everything you want. So absolutely, Paddy, I agree. You get caught up in the moment, stuff we all do, but this is special time, so enjoy it.
It really is. I mean, Ange Postecoglou, he's somebody that I would describe as a once-in-a-lifetime Celtic manager, and he's shown in the relatively short time he's been here just how impressive he can be. He might get some minor things wrong now and then, and tell my manager in world football that doesn't, but overall, there isn't a man on the planet you'd rather have in charge of Celtic. So as James says, let's all continue to enjoy him while he's here. Okay, let's move on to this week's Mystery Celt, and we'll start with a quick reminder of last week's Mystery Celt for anyone who missed it. So clue number 1, I've played for Celtic and Manchester United. Clue number 2, I've got 4 caps for my country. And clue number 3, I scored for Celtic in a League Cup final win. The answer, of course, was the Duke, Double D, Big Celine, Homes Under the Hammer legend, Dion Dublin. Paddy, did you get that one from home or from your travels?
Do you make up the nicknames?
that's not me.
I guess I'm off at Twitter.
Aye, it must do. I did get it, aye. But it's easy for me to say that, isn't it?
It is easy to say that, but fair. I'll believe you because you're an honest man. His time at Celtic, Paddy, was all too brief, but your thoughts on his spell at the club?
Aye, got his goal in the League Cup final. A legend.
That's it.
That'll do. I mean, so just in terms of his fact file at Celtic, signed by Gordon Strachan in January 2006 to cover for the loss at the time of Chris Sutton. He won a league and League Cup double in that season, and as Paddy said, he scored the third goal in the 3-0 Cup final win, League Cup final win over Dunfermline, which will forever be remembered as the Jimmy Johnson final after Jinky had died just a few days prior. He signed for Celtic at 36 years of age, and on that basis, James, he was only ever going to be a stopgap, and he then moved on to Norwich City in September 2006 before retiring a short time later. From your own point of view, James, big fan of Homes Under the Hammer?
I don't get to see it as often as I would like to. But if you go back on to Dion, good on him for changing his career and getting into something different, because it's a fairly well trodden path as to what he could have done. He seems to be a great character. He's been great to have around the dressing room. I don't think Strachan brings guys into the dressing room lightly. If it's guys he knows, he knew what he was looking for and what he was getting in Dublin. We got him at the tail end of his career. There's not a lot to speak of in terms of Celtic career, but yeah, he played his part in a small degree.
He scored in a cup final for Celtic, something we can only
many have I got.
So fair enough. But yeah, popular guy, done his job while he was here, and all the best to him. Okay, so let's move on to this week's Mystery Celt. As always, the first 10 people who reply with the right answer to the Mystery Celt on our Twitter page win a month completely free of the Celtic Exchange Plus. To take part, just visit our Twitter page right now at Celtic Exchange, and you'll see the clues posted there in our pinned tweet, and good luck to everyone taking part. Okay, so the score, Paddy, is currently 5-3 to the host, which sometimes includes you, sometimes not. Are you ready for this week's Mystery Celt?
Yes,
yeah,
I am.
Clue number 1. I made over 150 appearances for Celtic from the early to late 90s.
Brian McLaughlin.
Derek White.
Interesting. They're both wrong, but they are interesting. Clue number 2. I scored a last-minute winner against Rangers in October 1993.
Paul Byrne.
Not Paul Byrne.
1993. And Dovchik.
And clue number 3, not Dovchik. Clue number 3. After leaving Celtic, I joined Aberdeen before going on to play for 2 seasons in the Bundesliga. So, while the lads are having a wee think about that one, I want to give listeners a short reminder of the additional content we provide over on the Celtic Exchange Plus. As well as special episodes we do with ex-players, coaches and journalists, we produce extra pre- and post-match podcasts for every Celtic game, and we've got a busy week coming up there with a double-header against Hearts. This means we'll be providing 4 extra podcasts this week, covering everything you need to know before and after each of those games. If you haven't already subscribed, you can experience the Celtic Exchange Plus right now, absolutely free with their 7-day trial. Simply visit thecelticexchange.com/sign up to get started and to enjoy all the additional content we offer to subscribers. We've got subscriptions starting at just $1.50 a month. So if you enjoy what we do and want to hear even more from us across the week, then visit the CelticExchange.com/sign up now. Paddy, I've got a feeling you may have it.
So for a guy that, never seen the 90s, is
So the boys have got it. As always, that'll be beeped out, and what you just said there will also be beeped out. Too many extra clues. So, Paddy, you've returned triumphantly to the other side of the desk, and the score is now 5-4 to the host.
This shouldn't be a clue, but see the retro kit that Celtic brought out last week? That's the guy I think of in that toggin.
Yeah, and you're right to do so. So that's maybe an extra wee clue for anyone that wants to have a look. So remember, if you think you know the answer to this week's Mystery Cell and want to win a month free of the Celtic Exchange Plus, then simply reply to our pinned tweet at Celtic Exchange using the hashtag Mystery Cell.